celebrate the 8th anniversary of Night in the Woods by playing the first section of this incredible game. We are going to start right at the very beginning of this game, and we are going to play up to the awesome and well, not necessarily awesome, but very memorable Party in the Woods scene, which if you have played Night in the Woods for any length of time, then you definitely remember what that scene was like. So we're playing up till there. Very excited to celebrate this incredible game with all of you. Hey there, Krogan. It's really hard to believe that it has actually been 8 years since this game was released. Just going to go ahead and change our thumbnail here. All right, so I'm going to get started here. All right, so we start with this poem, which is very important. I've talked about this before in a lot of my videos. But you find out a lot about May. You find out a lot about her backstory. You find out a lot about her family, and a lot of the things that are going to be very important to this game right here. All three of these lines right here, they all have something to do with the cult. So even all the way back with the very beginning of this game, from the very opening poem, all three of these lines that you can choose from here have a ton of relevance to what's going to happen later in the game. I'm going to go with, for this one, they went looking for the gods and died in lonely places. I'm not actually going to get to Gregg or B's storyline, but if I were, I probably would end up playing, probably end up going with B. But it's actually really funny that you ask about that, Ravens, because in 2 weeks I'm going to be dropping a video that's going to break down the differences between the Gregg and B roots and what impact they have on May. We go with the old empty mill. So this is such an important poem for a whole lot of reasons, both the references to the cult right there. I used to think for the longest time that this was probably a poem that May wrote when she was in high school. But in light of the video I did a couple months back, I think it was in October or early November, on the Kickstarter backer content, I initially thought it was from when she was in high school, but based on that, based on how much writing there was from when she was in college, I think that it might be, I think that it's more likely that she wrote the poem when she was in college, in her college freshman year English class. At least that's my best guess based on this. But the line, "This house is haunted," is just so important to this game. I've speculated in other videos, if you look back at my video on May's grandfather, I've speculated in other videos that he's not talking about May's literal physical house, but House Borowski, her family, that they are haunted and that they all have a connection to the black goat that began with her great great grandfather Arthur. So I think this connection to black goat goes all the way back there. I think that I think that the black goat's kind of had its claws in her family ever since then. I think that her grandfather had the glimmer just like her and kind of passed it down to her. So I think when he says this house is haunted, I think he's talking about her family. But regardless of if my crazy theories are true or not, I think that this poem really sets the stage to tell us about just how impacted May is by the death of her grandfather, just how hard it's been for her ever since he passed away. All right, so here we begin right at the train station. Is my microphone level good? Can everybody hear me? Excellent, excellent, fantastic. So we begin right in the Possum Springs bus station. As somebody who used to take public transportation back home himself from college, this scene always, right from the beginning, has always hit me really hard because I can only imagine just how difficult it must have been to come back home and not have the people who you expected to be there not there. Hey there, on the run. So we got this sign here from Possum Springs, founded in 1795. That's a great question. I think that it's probably just, it'd be great to come up with some kind of theory about it, but it's probably just a gameplay contrivance because the amount of stuff that she probably would need to bring home from college with her is astronomical. I know just from every time that I went away to college, my parents' minivan was packed to the brim with stuff. I couldn't have unpacked my entire. I would go back for the weekends sometimes on public transportation, but man, there's no way I would have been able to bring back all of my stuff on a bus. Prepare to be disappointed. That's quite an opening for Possum Springs. All right. So we see some Garbo Molloy for the very first time. Good evening, Bobby. I love these guys. They're so delightfully cheesy. Let's talk to our friend, the janitor. I have put out a video on the janitor. I do not think that the janitor is the forest god. That's a pretty common theory that the janitor is the forest god. But personally, I think that he does have some type of connection to him. I've speculated that he has a version of the Glimmer that is connected to the forest god, as opposed to May's version of the Glimmer, which is connected to the Black Goat. Nicolas Cage is the janitor. That would be some pretty interesting casting. I think it could pull it off. All right, so May's going to go get a free ass cola for our friend the janitor. Casting ideas. I forget. I mentioned in did a video over the summer where somebody had asked me this. I'll have to look up what they were. I had a couple really good ones. I'll have to look up what those suggestions were. I'll have to pull up the document because I had some pretty good suggestions. I know I suggested for the for Angus. I remember suggesting the guy who voiced Brody in the second Life is Strange game. I think that guy could pull off that role. Just the voice just sounds right. Yeah, Night in the Woods movie would have a lot to live up to. I don't think it ever would. I know that at one point somebody did talk to them. At least it had been alluded to in a post from Scott that somebody had talked to them about doing an animated series, but it just ended up not coming to pass. She comments here about how it would work better as a series more than likely, but I don't think we'll end up seeing either one. May talks here about why the janitor would want a regular Fiascola instead of a lime Fiascola. This is always something that makes me laugh because something that I've always noticed about my trips to the Rust Belt or the Pittsburgh area where this game is set are that they always, the vending machines, the stores, they always seem to have more or a bigger variety of cola flavors and soda flavors than a lot of other places. I have no idea why that was, but I loved when I went out to college in Pittsburgh because I could get a vanilla Coke anywhere. I could never get vanilla Cokes back home unless I was in some kind of, specialty store, but always made me laugh. Yeah, it's based off of Western PA, specifically like the areas around Pittsburgh and the Rust Belt, some of the smaller communities out there. But it speaks to the entire Rust Belt experience in general. That's awesome. All right, so we got our free ass cola. As for comics, while you guys are talking about it, people have asked Scott Benson before if he would ever consider writing more, now that he's not making games because of his health situation, if he would consider writing comics or drawing comics about what the characters are up to. And he said that he has thought about it. So maybe we'll see that someday. Definitely an interesting way to drink. Don't know that it is the safest way to do things, but hey, if it works for him. All right, and with that, we can leave the bus station. Yeah, it's really depressing thinking about that May came home and I don't think she expected just a big welcoming party, obviously, but she expected there to be some people here, and they're not here. That really sucks for her. metallic sawdust metal combo. Adds to the taste. This vista here from the back was just, in the background was just one of the things that when I first played this game, and I think I've told you guys about this before, or at least I've mentioned it before, that when I first played this game, my wife was the first person to play it. She was the one who found the game, and I backseat gamed while she played the first time. But as soon as we hit this part, I was like, oh my gosh, Pittsburgh, because this is, you just see vistas like this in Pittsburgh all the time because there were so many factories out there. That immediately gave me a connection to this game. And I just kind of knew right from there that I was going to have some type of bond with it. Yeah, it's an abandoned glass factory. It's implied that May's dad worked there at some point. He mentions it at the end of the game when he goes on his rant about all the places he's worked. Here comes the train. Dank nature. Dank nature and garbage. Again, it's just a very depressing return. You know, she goes back through garbage, she goes back through this really run-down, dilapidated area, and then she falls flat on her back after all this stuff falls down. Some foreshadowing there with the line, "I'm not gonna die in this hole." No, I did not crawl through the forest when I returned from college. That would have been pretty wild. I think, Bobby, if there were more games like this one, I think that they would probably have a better community if there was kind of like a clear niche of games similar to it. It's a shame that Fall of Porcupine didn't have all that much of an impact in the gaming community. It's a shame it didn't get that much attention, because if there were, you know, a good 2 or 3 games like this, I think that there would be a really big community devoted to stuff like this, at least a bigger community. But I'm happy to do my part to keep this spirit of this amazing game alive. This always reminds me of the playground that I had at my elementary school growing up. It was very pirate themed. There was a big pirate ship. Yeah, Bobby, everybody who's like I've talked to about this game, it's a small community, but everybody's just so devoted to it and so nice. I've had such great interactions with fans since starting this YouTube channel. Yeah, it had like a pirate theme to it. It was a very rundown and really crappy pirate ship. Like half the middle of it was gone, but the front and back half were partially into like these wood chips. You go in and play in there, but it wasn't the safest place to go because there were always bees on the inside. Just always bees. All right, so we're gonna get on up here. This is where you get a little tutorial to the game's jumping mechanic. If you fail it enough times after like getting the tutorial down at the very bottom, you can actually skip it. It's kind of neat how some of the heavier gameplay segments in this game you can just skip. Like you actually can skip even the you can even skip the the music segments. All right. Our first look at the journal. I've always thought it's very significant that, the mention of her granddad is the first thing that she's got in there. Just a reminder just how big an impact losing her grandpa had on her. All right. Let's go ahead and walk on this telephone wire. Walk over to the telephone pole. And drop on down. Here we have Aunt Molly. Now, I've been a bit hard on Aunt Molly over the years. I definitely owe her another video coming up. But Aunt Molly, I've long thought, has some idea about what's going on in the town and is trying to figure it out. But I think there's a lot of things that get in her way of being able to. Now, based on what happens the next night, we know that, or the next day rather, we know that there was... Hey, James. It's all good, bud. Based on what happens the next night, we know that the cult was active on this night. And I think, personally, that it's likely that Aunt Molly might have saved May's life right here. Because I think it's possible that the cult, at that point, might have seen May coming back home and decided to go after her. Because, she was just this aimless kid returning for college at this point. I'm not sure that they would have known about her connection to the Glimmer just yet and things of that nature. But I really do think Molly definitely saved May's bacon right here. Yeah, I mean she can be abrasive. She's a little she doesn't she has her I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Her and May do have their differences, but ultimately I really do think that Molly cares for May and does look out for her. And I really think on this night that she probably saved May. Might have saved May anyway from something. Yeah, I don't think, once she's back, I don't think she's a target for the cult. But I could have seen, especially with how flimsy their operation is, that they might have seen her that night, or at least Lerv, who was responsible for finding somebody, might have seen her. But once she's back, yeah, I definitely agree with you, Bobby. I think it's like, hey, she's part of the town now. And here's Stan. I love Stan. Stan is just classic Pittsburgh dad, Midwest dad vibes. Oh, wow. Thank you, James, for gifting some memberships out. Hope you guys who were gifted those memberships by The wonderful James. Enjoy those memberships. I have a newsletter coming out on Sunday, my monthly newsletter, and the memberships really help support the channel, help support this awesome content. So thank you for doing that, James, and I hope you guys enjoy your stay as channel memberships. You're the man, James. So there's this miscommunication here between May and her parents. It's not entirely clear to me whose miscommunication this is. I meant to kind of break it down at some point. But either way, it's really sad for her. So my bed's still here. That is a common fear of any kid who goes away to college. That their parents are gonna just go ahead and do something else with their bedroom. Always loved that clock. If I could get a replica of that clock, protagonist. She's really great, especially in the sense that, you know, she just walks into trouble so often. It's a great position for a protagonist to be in. Yeah, and she's so relatable in so many ways, but she sometimes just walks herself right into trouble. That's a fair point, Sumerian. There's yeah, there, and that's one of the funny things about this game is the amount of animal stuff that exists in a world where there are, you know, in a game where we have humanoid animals. All right, let's head on upstairs. May's guitar. Looking forward to playing some music on this next day. With that, May goes to sleep, and the very first initial day of Night in the Woods is over. At some point, coming down the line here, I am going to do a breakdown of the actual the in-game calendar of Night in the Woods, because the game is set in 2017, so you can very clearly map out when all this stuff is happening. Though what happens at the very end with the cult, once she encounters the cult for the first time anyway, is a bit debatable about what exactly the timeline is at that point. Cute family picture of the Borowskis. Yeah, I love her commentary on this bird. This poor bird. Her granddad's apple crate of books. That's one fun thing about Night in the Woods, Bart, is that people are always discovering it. Let's head downstairs and talk to May's mom. I've always wondered just how short notice it was that May came back. We're in October. We're in early October. So one would think, well, mid-October, one would think that she's had a good bit of time in her second year of college, in her sophomore year, to acclimate herself to the curriculum, to the school, to the classes she's taken. So it does make one wonder, how exactly all of it went down. We know what the things were that prompted her to leave, but it does make me wonder, like, on how short notice did she just call them back and call them like one weekend and say, "Hey, I gotta go home. I can't do this anymore." Definitely raises. I'd be interested to know or speculate some more about how that might have gone down. Well, I mean, Mom, asking if everything's okay when your daughter just came back from college in a big surprise. Things are definitely not okay. There's a lot going on. Thank you, Corvo. Appreciate the support. With everybody saying cheese in the chat, I'm hearing it in Shea Gorath's voice from the Elder Scrolls. It's another one of my favorite game series, but I will probably be 40 by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. Yeah, so right here we immediately see that, May is going back home and she kind of expects things to be the same when she gets back home, but unfortunately things have changed. Food Donkey is gone, and also they have a Snack Falcon now. So on the note of the prequel, the initial plan at some point was they were going to do, I think, like some kind of prequel game as an epilogue, but it never got finished. I know they were planning on doing something with the content, but then they moved on to Revenant Hill, then everything happened there. So I don't know. I would love to, like, my absolute dream is to interview Scott Benson someday and try to talk to him about some of this stuff. Maybe I'll be big enough of a YouTube channel by the 10th anniversary of Night in the Woods to try to swing something like that, just to ask some questions, find out some more about the development, find out what other stuff was left on the cutting room floor and things like that. I don't know. That's my big goal. That's my dream. So let's move on. Let's get into the town of Possum Springs, Part 1, Home Again. So here we have some construction, and as mentioned by May's mom, it's construction season. This is all fall. Even right now, in the winter here in Pennsylvania, there is construction going on. We're always fixing things here. It's just how it goes here in Pennsylvania. No matter what part of Pennsylvania it's in. I think my biggest question would be what that prequel game was going to be like. I'd also want to know, this is my question for Scott Benson, I'd also want to know, he said at one point that if there was a Night in the Woods sequel, if a Night in the Woods sequel was ever made, he knew what it would be like. I would want to know what it would be like. I agree, Bobby. I think that there's a good bet of like a remaster or a re-release. I think something will happen on the 10th anniversary. That's just my hope. As for Android or iPhone, I'm an Android guy, but it's not like a super big preference. It's just kind of it's what my the phone carrier we had when I was a teenager allowed me to have growing up. I couldn't get an iPhone. I just got used to it. My wife uses an iPhone though. See some kids. And here we get the very suspicious Mr. Twigmeyer. So let's talk to Mr. Twigmeyer, and then let's talk a little bit about what I think of Mr. Twigmeyer and my theories that I put forward about him. So he's got that classic Pittsburghese accent. Hey, Anthony. Mr. Quagmire. So, Mr. Twigmeyer, if you pick the other dialogue tree, he says something about putting down roots, and at the very end of the game, in the epilogue, when Aunt Molly shows up, which is a big moment because if you think back to the weird autumn edition of Night in the Woods, it changed a lot about the epilogue. It changed some dialogue throughout the game, but it changed a lot about the epilogue in particular because Aunt Molly was not present in the initial epilogue of this game, which led to all kinds of theories that went on for 7 months that Aunt Molly was a cult member. But then Weird Autumn comes around, and she's very clearly not a cult member. She's there at the end of the game. But I think the fact that she is on Maze Street is really significant because that tells us, because she mentions to May that she's looking into some phone calls, strange phone calls that she received the night before. I think it's very likely that she was checking in about Mr. Twigmeyer. We don't see him at the end of the game, and then if you think back to the dream sequence in the church, he says some really suspicious stuff. He says some stuff that kind of alludes to the fact that he might know more about... it seems like he might know more about what happened to May than he's letting on. It's a very suspicious conversation. And the fact that she's positioned on the street Molly has always made me think that somebody on the street must have been a cult member. I think it's Mr. Twigmeyer. There's some other stuff that I've put forward about the fact that one of the cult members calls her by name and recognizes her. I recommend checking out my video about that for that one. I'll put a link down in the description box once I'm finished here. But yeah, the Pumpkinhead guy would be a funny name for it. I could see them naming it, Hold On to the Hold On to Anything edition. It's not the greatest name. Weird Autumn had a nice ring to it. We'll see. We'll see what they might call it if they were to do a re-release. Personally, I hope they do another limited run physical edition, because I was too late to get a copy of that, but I would love to have gotten a copy. We got Selmers, one of my favorite minor characters. That'd be pretty cool. Some kind of, yeah, creation suite to it would be neat. I mean, if they did add something like that, I would 100% like work on, like, learn a little bit of coding and work on some, well, not coding, but learn how to use that stuff and work on some levels and things like that. I would absolutely do that. Summers is such a big character when it comes to the world building of what Possum Springs and this area is like. She's been through a lot at her age. She's been married, she's been divorced, struggled with addiction. It's crazy how much stuff that she's dealt with at a young age. She's only a couple years older than May. Here she is hoping her ex gets shivved at work. Scare him right in the kidney. Yeesh. Night in the Woods Battle Pass. It's funny reading that, considering I spent all of last weekend playing Elden Ring Night Rain, where there were lots of jokes about the Elden Ring Battle Pass. Here we got this guy at his porch. I believe his name is Varney. And Mr. Chasakov. Love Mr. Chasakov. He's a really important character because there's not a whole lot of great authority figures in Possum Springs, but May loves Mr. Chasakov and loves the time that she spent together with him. Yeah, if somebody did like a big, YouTuber live reading of Night in the Woods, I would probably want to voice Mr. Chasakov. Love Mr. Chasakov. Here we got Danny, another really important character with the world building, because he really sets the tone of that this is just a town where people are having trouble holding on to jobs, a town where people are having trouble finding a future, figuring out what they're going to do with their lives. Very grim thing to think. So this conversation here kind of foreshadows what's going to ultimately come up with some of May's conversations with B. May, one of the things about May is that, well, she has absolutely been through a lot with the killer incident, death of her grandfather, economic struggles of her family. There are a number of ways where she has been quite fortunate. She does have a place to live. A lot of people's parents wouldn't take them in if they came back from college. I knew people's parents who said, "Hey, if college doesn't work out, don't come back here." And at least for the first couple of weeks here, her parents don't make her get a job. So there are some ways, despite everything that she's gone through, that she is a little bit fortunate. I'm not saying that, she's been super lucky or anything like that. But there are a number of ways that she has been fortunate, that a lot of people like Danny, a lot of people like B would be envious about, that she's had the opportunity she's had despite everything. Here we see our first notice about Casey. I always thought that there would be more with this area. Love the yarn ball, though. As I mentioned in my last video on the cult series, which, by the way, I have a big cult video coming up at some point that's going to really tie everything together, likely be over an hour. It mentions here that he was last seen on June 27th, so this would mean that the cult has been very active lately. I believe they say that the cult has sacrificed 27 victims, but they've made 3 sacrifices in 2017 alone, because they sacrificed Casey, they sacrificed the guy whose arm gets cut off, and they sacrificed the Harfest kid as well. So the cult's been very active lately, which is rather interesting and suggests to me that something's going on there. Either maybe the black goat is hungrier than usual, something along those lines. That's a great question. I don't know how the cultists cut off that guy's arm. That's one of the bigger unanswered questions of Night in the Woods. I've speculated in my video about the arm that maybe it was some kind of trap, because you can see that there's it's a jagged cut. I know that a lot of people think about the sword in the hidden room, which makes me wonder if maybe it was with that. But again, it was a jagged cut. It's a very visibly jagged cut, which brings a trap to mind for me, like a bear style trap, a bear trap style trap. Got the old pickaxe, and here we got Lori. I'll wait for Scott to get out of the way to talk with Lori M. And we have our first mention of the killer incident. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, it's wild to me just how big a deal the killer incident was. But Possum Springs is a very small town, so word about what happened definitely would have gotten around everywhere. It would have been something. I bet May can't stand the killers. I'm sure she can't. Yeah, but everybody, it's definitely something everybody heard about, and they probably had all kinds of crazy theories about why May did it and what had happened to her. I have a big video coming up on the killer incident. I'm going to try to make it in a prepare to cry style, if you're familiar with Vadi Vidya's incredible series about the Souls game. It's going to kind of be in that mold, where it's going to be a bit more like a narrative and looking at what we know about it and trying to piece it together. I'm going to try to get some custom art for it too and everything. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Night in the Woods forever. There's always more to talk about with it. Anselm Borowski. All right. Possibilities. May's favorite restaurant. Down to possibilities. I'm a little bit Italian, and Italian food is my favorite kind of food, and I bet Possibilities has some really good shit. Love these guys. Almost quitting time. Smelters. Smelters are very obviously a in-universe version of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here we go. The reunion with Gregg. Sense of humor. Love their banter. Gregg flailing his arms will always make me smile. It's just so nice to see how happy he is to have May back. Up until this point in the game, nobody has been this happy to see her return. And it's just so striking at this moment to see somebody who is this excited for her to be back. It's really cool. Yeah, not even her parents. Gregg is the most excited person to see her back. And it's striking because nobody else is stoked to see her home, but Gregg is just overjoyed and so welcoming to have her back. And this whole thing where my man Gregg just goes up and leaves work as soon as May comes into the store always makes me laugh too. I get big if you're familiar with How I Met Your Mother. I get big Barney's job vibes from Gregg's job here at the Snack Falcon sometimes, because my man just up and leaves randomly all the time. That too. He might be the only employee. Yeah, the Party Barn, another business that failed in Possum Springs. Great reference there on the run. That's a great question there, Face. When I decided that Night in the Woods was going to be a major feature of this channel, the way that it is, I reached out to somebody who made custom Night in the Woods style characters, and asked them to make an image based on some parameters that I gave them. So it's just an avatar for the channel, but yeah, just an avatar for the channel. All right, and here we go with Die Anywhere Else. Yeah, I was born in 1991, so that's what I went with. Because the name just straight up Albatross was already taken. I'm a bass player myself, so I always love these segments. Between the bass playing and the clear references to Pittsburgh, just from playing this game for the first time, I was like, wow, this game is just hitting all the right notes for me. So many things I can relate to and connect to. Bass is a great instrument. Ooh, that fill is rough. Great fill, but tough to do. Yeah, I think that it's I think that it's a little crunchy, and I think that the other thing is she's playing with a pick, and when you play bass with a pick, it has a very different tonality than when you play it when you pluck the strings with your fingers. I actually only just noticed today that she plays bass with a pick, but that's a major bass player faux pas. Actually, you're not supposed to play with a pick, but it does produce a very different sound. If you listen to Metallica's music, back in the 80s, they had a bass player who was great, Cliff Burton. Unfortunately, he died in a terrible bus accident, but he played with his fingers, and later, when they got their next bass player, Jason Newsted, he played bass with a pick, and you can just tell the difference between the two. That is true. It has also been sitting in a dusty barn for 2 years, which is not good for a bass, not good for an instrument. It probably needs a good tune-up. Back when I was playing regularly, I used to take my bass to this like specialist who was like a bass whisperer, and he would just really get this thing going. I would take it to him once a year. I'd pay him, a couple $100 to look at the thing, get it all set up, because it really made a big difference in just how good the whole thing sounded. All right, on to the Click Clack Diner. I don't know about you guys, but for me, my college pizza, that I could go for that college pizza just about any time. That stuff was so good. I love the pizza rating scale. The pizza rating scale is a great way to think about pizza. Thank you, Maxim. I'm always going to be making videos about this game. I'm branched out onto other games because I'd like to get into some other stuff. There's a lot of games I really enjoy, but I will always be making videos about Night in the Woods because it's a great game. Love talking about it. I have so much to say about it too. I can always think of New Night in the Woods topics to cover. I remember discussions like that with certain bands. I did play out with certain bands, but there are plenty of bands who I just kind of hung around with like this, and it was always fun. Always fun, always a good time. Love Gregg's enthusiasm there. I've always referred to them as the Party Barn Garage Band, but I'd be interested to know what you guys think their names could be. Love the drop right here, the perfect drop of Casey's theme. As I've had some great conversations with Wolf Godwin about this, who, by the way, Wolf Godwin is the man. Wolf is the best. Go listen to their stuff if you haven't already. They're just incredible. And Wolf has done... Wolf and I have had some great conversations about the way that the theme for Casey just comes up at the best times. Yeah, you're right about that, Maxim. It's definitely mixed in, like, the music is mixed in almost like an Iron Maiden sort of way, where the bass, you can tell the bass, somebody's trying to feature the bass. And I love Iron Maiden, but you can tell that when they produce their music, they're like, all right, we're gonna crank up the bass, and here you can tell that they cranked up the bass. This is such a big moment for May, because Casey was very clearly somebody who was very important in her life. Gorillaz too. I love the Gorillaz. I definitely wish that the Casey mystery got mentioned more over the course of the game, but it definitely impacts her here, knowing that somebody who was so close to her is now gone. And as I've talked about in other places, May is a bass player, and a bass player and a drummer need to be on the same page. The best drummers that I played with when I was actively playing out and things like that, I had such a good rapport with them. I knew what they were doing before they did it, and they knew what I was going to do before I did it. And so the absence of Casey, May doesn't just feel it in the music. His drum tracks have been replaced by B's computer. That's got to be really hard for her. That's got to be something that really gives her a difficult time about coming back. Another example why things are so tough for her coming back, because things have changed. But in any case, for him to be gone, it's huge. She was very clearly close with him, not just in the sense with the band where they have this rapport of a bassist and a drummer, but also he was clearly somebody that she was very close to in her life, a big member of this group. And for him to not be here, it definitely impacts her, and you can feel it as the game goes on, that there's something missing there. And I think the thing that's missing is obviously Casey. As for music, thank you, Bar. I love the Gorillaz. They're so good. As for why why May and B stopped talking, I think the long and short of it is they kind of did just grow apart, as people often do when they were in middle school. Here we get some of B's initial abrasiveness towards May. As I'll be saying in the upcoming video I'm putting together on the difference between B and Gregg's hangouts, B is a bit more abrasive. She's a bit tougher to dial in on and want to hang out with. But her arc has more growth for May, I would argue. And I've always thought that for most folks, probably easier to relate to Gregg. And so I think most folks end up playing Gregg or going with Gregg's route on their first playthrough of the game. Whereas it takes a bit more time to warm up to B and get to know what she's like. And here we go with another iconic moment. We got that arm right there. Let's poke it with a stick. Yeah, I was wondering if there could be some zombies or things like that at this point as well, their face. So, I love that, the personalities of every member of the group come out here. Angus and B are cautious. Gregg is excited. Meg goes ahead, picks up a stick. Let's go ahead and do this in such a way that we can get to see the... let me try to do it in such a way to get to see the tattoo on his arm. Bit of an underdeveloped plot point. Here we go. But it does have a diamond tattoo. As I joked in my video on the arm, maybe it's a sign that he's a member of Diamond Dogs. What a thrill. Speaking of Metal Gear, I am very excited for the upcoming. I'm very excited for the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 3 remaster. That's gonna be great. Nickelback fan. So, I mean, again, Aunt Molly can be a bit abrasive here, but she ultimately, I really think she knows that something's up. As for what the tattoo is about, I think it might be like a miner's tattoo, was one of my initial speculations, that it might be a miner's tattoo. Or it might be it's also important to note that the arm has whoever arm it was is wearing a military style jacket, could indicate that they were in the armed forces. Speculated that maybe it could be like a homeless veteran. Unfortunately, that seems like a topic they might address. And then when you think about kind of the cult's philosophy about things, armed forces. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, you're right. There's a pun there. So, with the cult's clearly conservative, and it kind of jives with some of those themes about the undesirables, so to speak. Homeless veterans or something that folks that don't really get talked about. But again, that's pure speculation. I wear a military style jacket myself all the time, and I would have been the worst soldier of all time. So it's hard to say. All we have are theories. So here we get our first sign that May does not remember or does not know about what happened to May's mom. Or not May's mom. What happened to B's mom. Which is tough, and I definitely have some questions about how that went down. Because in such a small town like Possum Springs, you'd think she would have heard about it. I think I have said before, Wildy. But my favorite Night in the Woods character is Germ, 100%. I love Germ. You got it. Have a good night, Bart. Oops. Didn't actually want to go upstairs yet. Wanted to check out the crawl space, but I'll do that the next morning here. Bedtime. All right. We got Meg getting up here. Check out her computer. I don't think I need to do any analysis here. I think we know what's going on here. Gonna head on downstairs. First, gonna head upstairs real quick. She pirated One Piece. Maybe she downloaded LimeWire. I definitely destroyed my family's computer. At least one family laptop when I was a teenager by downloading LimeWire. But hey, man, I needed the used. I needed My Chemical Romance. Hey, Brotato. Good to see you. Hey! Brutal Legend! I love Brutal Legend. That is one of my favorite games. Unironically. I love that game. It's not like the best video game ever because you got that weird switch between like, you know, early God of War style combat and then the RTS stuff. But I love that universe. I'm such a huge heavy metal fan. At some point, I will do a Brutal Legend video. I don't know when. I don't know what exactly it'll be about, but I will 100% do a Brutal Legend video. And if they ever make a Brutal Legend sequel, you have no idea just how excited I will be for that game. I will pre-order that the minute it gets announced. I don't care what style of game it is. I love Brutal Legend in that universe. Speaking of Gregg and Angus, this year, at the start of June for Pride Month, I'm going to do a video on the two of them. I have a lot to say about their relationship and just how important it is to this game. All right. Head outside for day 2. Here we get Mr. Penderson. A lot of people think that Mr. Penderson is in the cult. I personally don't buy that. I think that Mr. Penderson is a bit too old to be a cult member. He's definitely rude, but I think he's a bit too old to be a cult member, personally. Yeah, what benefit would he bring? It's a fair question. Yeah, I think he's just the racist grandpa. I think you're totally right. And here we get another mention of the killer incident. Word got around everywhere. Which is one of the reasons that I have lots of questions about, well, again, why May didn't hear about what happened to B's mom. I think she kind of would have had to be living under a rock to have not heard anything about it. No Mr. Twigmeyer today. We won't see him again until the epilogue. All right, let's try to find Angus. I love this minor character here. Responds to everything with questions. Let's try to get ourselves to Gregg and Angus. Just Angus, rather. Got cups on my ears! My wife loves this moment. This is one of those things that as soon as it happened, she's like, this is just hilarious. I love this game. Hope to really connect to it right away. I think he did it on purpose. Seems to be his vibe. They would definitely get confused, but there is a Scott Benson has posted about it at some point. There's a street, I think he grew up on it or he grew up near it, that is so very clearly inspired May's street that May lives on. Yeah, I forget exactly in what town it is, but it's very, like, you look at it, it's like, wow, it's almost one for one May's street. Let's talk to her, and everything's going to be a question. All right, let's go try to get into the apartment. Yeah, the sass is indeed immense. Oops, went back out. All right, let's try to use to get in touch with him. Button broken. Just gotta make do with something else. Not surprised that Gregg kicked it in. Also like how that guy's name is just a squiggly line. Creepy person right here. Yeah, the music for this section is great. Very amusing and ambient. Got nothing to do but just hit a bunch of buttons. And get electrocuted for one of several times in this game for me. Love the color coding on the dialogue. This comment about just stick a screwdriver in there reminds me of back when I was at my old job, school I used to work at. If you slammed the door to the classroom I was in too hard, you couldn't get out unless I called the neighboring teacher and had them come over to open it up with a screwdriver. That was not great, nor safe in the least. Oh, May, evading what she did here. Yes, yes, the refusal to make eye contact is very funny. Very Dr. Manhattan style comment here from our boy Angus. So based on that comment, it sounds like he talked to Mr. Penderson. Can't imagine him and Mr. Penderson being friends. But they're neighbors, so I'm sure they talk. Here we get some comments about how Angus's dad and Stan, May's dad, used to drink together back when he was really struggling with his alcoholism, something that we'll hear about a little bit later at the party. Hear about the arm again here. This is one of the last times we actually hear about the arm until it comes up again at the end of the game. Yeah, knowing the full context, it's hard to see. Yeah, it's really hard to believe that it has been 8 years. Some wonderful arm puns going back and forth here. And can have May work on her computer or plug in Angus's fix. Angus to the rescue. That is my cat. Cat Maui. Hey, Maui. We're going to play some Demon Tower in a minute here. At least I'm going to play some Demon Tower until I get my ass kicked playing Demon Tower. And here we go with Gregg. Cracking jokes at May's expense. Very amusing conversation. Oh yeah, I will. Once she comes back down, I'll give her another pet. And she'll be back down in a minute now. Poison. All right, got this away message from Casey. Always so sad to see that's all that we end up seeing of Casey really in this game is this away message from him. The clearest look we get into his personality. All right, let's play some Demon Tower. I'm gonna get wrecked. At some point, I'm gonna do. I've never beaten Demon Tower. I have a goal of doing it someday. At some point, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to beat it. Probably make a video about beating it, and then I'll probably pop on here to do a live stream of me trying to beat it. That would be fun. It's always interesting because I've mentioned before to some folks, you know, that Scott Benson is a huge Souls fan. And you can see that he's a huge Souls fan in like some little ways about the way the game is designed, like the way the side quests work and the way you're supposed to check in with characters and things like that throughout the game. But obviously, this is just a straight up Souls game right here. Got the key. Demon Tower lore went. Yeah, at some point. The funny thing about Demon Tower is I feel like it's very easy to get into a rhythm and just be wrecking face with it, and then it's very easy to get knocked off of that rhythm. And then just get destroyed. Easy boss battle for the first one. Not sure if I was actually supposed to kill that guy. I never remember seeing that guy on previous playthroughs. You're supposed to talk to that guy, maybe? Yeah, I love the Sega font for it too. I completely messed that up, but I should not have killed that guy. I just... force of habit. I've never seen that guy before. Or at least I don't remember seeing him before. He unlocks a secret ending. Okay. Ay, ay, ay. Did not realize that. Oh well. This is a cursed playthrough now. What's the line from Morrowind when you kill that dude? You must now persist in the doom world you have created. I'm only gonna go until I die. If I weren't going until I die, then I would definitely go back and start over. See ya, Bobby. You have a good one. Thanks for coming by. That would be wild. I don't think I would. I mean, I usually die. I usually die by like the 3rd or 4th level. I always play at least for a little bit, but I'd never make it very far. But I never make it very far, but I've also never like super committed to playing it either. I've never been like, all right, this is gonna be the playthrough. Oh, thanks. 5:43 in the morning. In the morning in Turkey. Well, thank you for coming. That is quite early. Some dedication. I appreciate you coming by. Where is this hidden area? No, that's not it. Oh, there we go. Ah! Oh, there it is. You got it. I will definitely do that next time I'm on the run. I've never like sat down and been like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna beat Demon Tower. Once I did, I probably could do it. And as you guys know from my other videos, I'm a big Souls guy, and this is very clearly inspired by a lot of the Souls type mechanics. Okay, I think that's all the health that I can collect here. Let's go in and try to fight this boss. All right. The boss designs are pretty cool. I'd love to know, like, at what point in development, circling back to that conversation about, like, what would I ask Scott if I could? I'd love to know at what point in the development they're like, okay, let's stick an extended video game inside of our video gameception, so to speak. Interestingly enough, when my daughters have watched me play Night in the Woods, they always love seeing me play a little bit of Demon Tower, which I think is really funny. Then again, my youngest daughter asks me to play Elden Ring. She will come to the top of the stairs and go, "Daddy, play Elden Ring?" Yeah, they're adorable. For my older daughter, yeah, I'm 33. I have two daughters. One is 5. She will be 6 in March. The other one is 2. She will be 3 in April. Yeah, the concept is really interesting. About gaining, losing health but gaining dodge. It reminds me a bit of the way hollowing works in Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 is kind of the ugly duckling of the series, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's a fun game. A lot of people have big opinions about Dark Souls 2. I feel like Scott has tweeted about it at some point. I'm sure he's played it. Oh man, here we go. Like I said, it comes in waves with me with this game, where I'll just be wrecking face and then it'll crumble all of a sudden. All right, got the key. We're gonna go around try to gather up some health before I go into the boss fight. It's also so very Souls that you can kill somebody who ends up being really important accidentally. That's 100% something that Miyazaki would stick in a Souls game. Alright, at full health, but I got one of these really tough dudes that follows you coming up here. Yeah, that as well. Fallout New Vegas. Those guys wrecked me, but at least there's some health back here. Can pick it up. Okay. I've never played Fallout 1 and 2. Those are games I would like to go back and play at some point. I played 3. I played some in New Vegas. I really have to go back and finish New Vegas. New Vegas came out when I was at college, and I was just too busy to play it. I have it like sitting right in front of me. I've just never finished it. I love Obsidian's games though. I'm actually currently playing through. Yeah, I've heard they're fantastic. I'm currently playing through Avowed. I'm gonna put out an ending explained video on Avowed once I'm finished it. I love that game so far, and I also really like what was the other game Obsidian did? I love The Outer Worlds. All right, this guy. It's like recall. Okay, yeah, he goes on, and then he summons goons. One of my biggest pet peeves of boss fights, and like how it works in this situation, I hate when bosses summon goons. That is like my biggest pet peeve about any game. When a boss can just summon goons, it drives me bonkers. Plenty of cases I can think of where it happens, where it's done well, but man, it drives me nuts. Yeah, exactly. I wanna. When I get to a boss fight, I want it to be me, especially if it's like a big, like, named character who I've been trying to get to for a while, with lore built up behind them or something like that. This is gonna be it. This guy's gonna get me unless I can snipe him. Oh no! This is getting. Oh. Ah, there we go. That's it. The Dark Souls style stuff there. You died. Love it. Nito's okay. Nito's also never given me any... Nito has never given me any trouble, though. I think I've probably only died twice to Nito in all my times playing Dark Souls 1. At least to my memory. You too, Face. Great seeing you. Yeah, stupid amount of health on boss fights can also be really frustrating. Yeah, I don't think I've ever died more than like twice to Nito. By that point in the game, I just have such a I always go for a weapon with like a heavy stagger. So like I went with a claymore the last time I played that game, and by that point I'm just such a tank that I just go in and just stagger the hell out of the guy. Invulnerable phases in bosses is also quite frustrating. All right, let's play one of the bonus songs before we continue with the rest of this day. Space Dragon! This one's tough. Song has a very early Black Sabbath vibe to it. Oh yeah, binding it to keyboard, that would definitely help. It's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy for me to imagine Ozzy singing to a track like this. Especially early Ozzy. Definitely not my best, but still a fun song to play. All right, let's progress. Love Pink Floyd. Love Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I feel you there, Poison. It'd be cool if you could just sit there and jam out for a while. Maybe something for the 10th anniversary re-release / remaster that we were talking about earlier in the chat. I'd love to know more about the people that May did meet when she was out at college. Those two people I mentioned. Love to hear what the roommate situation was like. We got construction still going on down here. Let's climb on some telephone wires. No Mr. Chazikov set up yet. I mean, in a universe like this, potentially. Because if every cat person could do it, then you might have some trouble. Let's head down into the tunnel area here. You can steal a pretzel this early? Some intense burns from May here. Yeah, can't do it yet. I bet that this food is probably actually pretty decent, though. This looks like a good place. I mean, the guy's a jerk, this dad. I mean, he's got reason to be mean to May. May stole something from him, but I bet the food here is pretty good. We got what? Pierogi sandwiches. I can't really see what platters we got over here, but different pretzel stuff. I bet this food is pretty good. Got the mural of the dudes here. Yeah, it's like an Annie Ann's, basically. An Annie Ann's with pierogies. It's probably pretty solid. Probably pretty solid food. Got the smelters guys again. Go smelters. It's funny because the Steelers actually haven't won a playoff game since this game has come out, despite the success that they've had throughout their history. I bet in the sequel, if there ever a sequel, you could probably go into Miller's Bar. I'd love to know what Miller's Bar looks like on the inside. Navy recruiter here. Possibilities is a very clever name for sure. Just love this Navy recruiter. Like, hey, can you drive a submarine? Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe you can eventually do that. Let's go see B. Walked right past the place. All right. B looking out for workers. I'm assuming here that she's... Did she say here? Yeah, Miss Miranda. Some foreshadowing. Welcome back, Slushy. Some foreshadowing. Miss Miranda locking one of their guys in the basement. As she will later do. To May and to B. Yeah, it is pretty amusing the way it floats. But as I'll be bringing up in my upcoming video about the difference between the B and the Gregg hangouts, I really do think that one thing that we do see along B's path is that, and I hate to say this because she obviously doesn't want to be doing this job, but she seems like she's a pretty good boss. Definitely looks out for her workers. Oh, perfect timing there, Chris. Alright, so May's only task at this point is to go home and get ready for this party. Oh, the city council. Yeah, I didn't get to actually look at them the last time. Last time I walked by them. So the city council is another big topic of speculation. They were not present in the epilogue until the Weird Autumn edition, which led lots of people to speculate that they were cult members. Obviously, now that they're back in the game, they can't be cult members. But as I put out in the theory I put forward in my video on the city council, I do think that some of them know about the cult. I think that others of them are kind of like cult adjacent, like they're a lot allied with the cult, so to speak. The old pickaxe theme is great, Brotato. All right. And here we go with a really important scene with Aunt Molly, which is just one of the moments that, again, made people think that she was a cult member or connected to the cult. But again, I do think she's looking out for May. Oh, it's awesome to hear. It's awesome to hear, Chris. I'm really glad to hear that my videos have inspired you. Every time I get a great comment like that, it's really a comment about either my videos inspiring people or meaning anything to people. It really encourages me to keep doing this. It would be very interesting if a Night in the Woods series was to be done, or if a series was to be done, or if there were to be, some type of, big project to do a narrated version of this game. It would be really interesting to see how somebody would choose to direct these lines, because the key thing about it is there's a balance you got to strike between it, because it is ominous what she's saying, but at the same time, I think that she is looking out for May, but in context, it's got to come off as a little bit ominous, but also like, hey, I'm looking out for you. That way it strikes that balance up until the end of that game where people are like, okay, is she connected to the cult? Is she not connected to the cult? Does she know what's going on? Does she not know what's going on? I think it's really important that balance is struck if somebody were to ever do any kind of project like that, because it definitely is meant to be interpretable both ways up until the end, where it's clear that, like I said, she's not connected to the cult. Time for tacos. Thank you, Carlo. Really glad to hear that. It's a great line. I always say that every Halloween we have tacos. We have taco. My wife and I have tacos all the time. But One of our traditions is having tacos on Halloween. And I always end up saying, the family that tacos together, Rocco's together. All right. So now we have May getting ready for the party. This is always a really tough scene for me to watch. Because here we see a lot of the insecurities that May deals with, a lot of the body dysmorphia that she deals with. And it's one of those examples in the game where every dialogue option that you have to pick from is really shitty. Because no matter what, the game is driving home that she is just feeling really bad right now. And she's dealing with body dysmorphia and social anxiety about going to this party before she's even left for the place. You can see even the way it's swaying here that she's having a really tough time. I'm rocking a bit of a caveman aesthetic myself these days. I need to trim my beard and get a haircut, but the last time I got a haircut, the last two times I got a haircut in the middle of an Philadelphia Eagles playoff run, they lost. So I decided this time I wasn't going to do that. So now that they've won the Super Bowl, I gotta go get a haircut. She's just having a really hard time here. It's really hard to see. And it ends up bleeding over to the party itself, which is also just a really tough scene to watch in so many ways. And here we get the mention of Cole. Put out a video about Cole that I was pretty proud of. I was surprised that I was able to talk as much about Cole as I was. The fact that, I mean, it's super minor here, but the fact that B doesn't know that Cole and May were a thing for a while probably suggests that she didn't go to senior prom where May had that big, awful time. I tell you, I do not miss, being 33 now, I do not miss these types of parties, nor do I miss the beer that was usually available at parties like this. Watered down, just purely there for the sake of getting people drunk and just not good. Couldn't pay me to drink Natural Light or whatever other kind of terrible beer they had at these parties. Oh, nice. That's awesome. I actually, I brewed some beer with some of my friends a couple summers ago. And while we were brewing the beer, we were drinking some wine. And one of my friends had a little bit too much and messed up some of the beer. I think he messed up the stout that we were making. And then when it came time to bottle the beer, the guy who knew how to bottle the beer, he had left to go to move to another state for his job. So we had no idea what we were doing, and we were FaceTiming him and to figure out what we were doing, and we really messed it up. And when it came time to drink the beer, when it was finally able to drink it, it was disastrous because we completely messed up the carbonation. And if you weren't careful when you popped the caps off the beers, they would like fly up in your face. It was a disaster.